That's so fun. Walk on music, that's awesome. This is a proper conference. It's funny. So, yes, it's true. We were really angry. And I think I'm still kind of angry, at least miffed. And some of this started like Peter, our CMO, asked me, like, what does content mean, actually? I'm like, you know what? I think our field, we don't actually know that. I don't have the clicker, so I can't go to the next slide. That's a problem. Perfect, thank you. So our field kind of has a framing problem, I'd say. Like we talk about content, we talk about it a lot. We have all its concepts like content marketing, content optimization, structured content, content strategy, and for the amount of airtime we give this word, I'm not so sure we talk about the same things very often. There is one way, and I guess we all can kind of customary definition of this, where it boils down to content being this kind of bunch of text and images that you can slot into templates, and then you kind of render those templates onto your audience. And this is the kind of framing problem right there, because this leads to content being this kind of production system. Like, it must be produced at a certain rate and reaching a certain kind of audience at a certain kind of distribution effect, and it should kind of affect the desired business outcomes at a certain rate. And then we have to produce more content and get more kind of consumer behavior the way we want it. And I think a lot of the systems to work with content also are structured like this. They are about creating and distributing content. But there is a lot of, call it bland cookie-cutter experiences online. And I think this way of thinking has a lot of the blame for that. And there is another way of thinking about content, a meaning that may be more connecting with what a person from outside the field would kind of think of content. We could think of content as that which remains with us as the experience itself kind of fades from memory. And when we think about content like this, in order to have content at all, an experience has to somehow be remarkable. It must leave us with it must leave us somehow marked. However subtly, I guess. And as far as I can work out, the only way that can happen is for that experience to connect on a human level. I think an experience feels special when it appears intentional, when I feel that I, as a member of an audience, someone cared about my interests and my kind of mindset and my situation, and they crafted this experience, and I'm deriving some kind of joy from that. And that's very remarkable, and it's surprisingly rare. Many of you recognize this Prada store in New York. It's designed by Rem Koolhaas, one of our kind of, I guess, company heroes, famous architect from Rotterdam. Many of you have probably been here. It is a very remarkable space, and for someone kind of receptive to the Prada brand, experiencing this space can be elevating. It can be very special. I was drawn into this space as a much younger and poorer man than I am today. I was in New York exploring, not being able to afford much in terms of shopping, but I saw this space, and the most kind of striking thing about it is its absence. There's like what you see from the street is basically nothing. It's just an empty volume. And in New York, like where every cubic inch is kind of strip mined for commercial value, this is remarkable in itself. And then just leaving that kind of cavity there, and I was pulled into this striking space, and I was kind of in awe. And I think the exhibition at the time was kind of just vaguely alluding at kind of something with garments. I don't know. It was kind of looking more like art, but it was clearly marketing. But for me, it was completely impossible to understand how this marketing was supposed to work. It kind of puts you out of balance a little bit. And as I was wandering around, I discovered there was an actual store downstairs, like an actual shop. And even this kind of scruffy-looking guy in torn jeans, I was kind of sat down by the shopkeepers. And presented with these finest, most unattainable garments. And at the time, I was just thinking they kind of had just erred on the safe side. Like, who knows in New York what a rich person looks like? Anyone can be rich, who knows? But if there was content in this space, in that experience, it was telling me something about the meaning of what the Prada brand kind of is, this kind of out of balance, kind of inscrutable experience. And it kind of, maybe it helped me see those garments with Miuccia Prada's eyes. And through this remarkable experience, there was a connection, like a little relationship was sparked. I'm now Prada planted in my mind. And a decade later, as I was about to get married, feeling I should like really give this moment some special attention, there was no other way around it. I didn't go for the weird Prada stuff. I just got like a very regular like suit, but it's like great material. It's Prada shirt, Prada shoes, Prada everything. It kind of connected me to those values, that kind of experience. I don't maybe go for the weird shit anyway. So I'm going somewhere with this, I promise you. Now I will show you a picture from my son's confirmation. No. That would be remarkable. So the point here is that this is where I get angry, right? This is where I'm at least miffed. Because if you go to Prada online, like this is what you get. And it's like the opposite thing. It's the most generic experience you could imagine for Prada. This is presenting Prada as just like this kind of collection of unrelated items floating in space. There's no myth. There's no clues about how these things are related or how I should kind of connect them to the culture at large. The effective content here, as the kind of experience very quickly fades, is that Prada is just some provider of high-quality garments. They are beautiful, for sure. But there is like, this is purely transactional. At best, this is for the converted. Like, maybe it works if you like already have that relationship. There is no way to fall in love with Prada in this space. And you could kind of call this, I have in the past called this like a regression to catalog shopping. It's just like when I want to be really angry in a meeting and I'm talking to an e-commerce actor, like this is catalog shopping. But then I realized like catalog shopping is something very different. Catalog shopping is beautiful. This is the Sears catalog in the 60s. These are handcrafted, beautiful kind of stories about those products. They are put in relationships. They even explain maybe a lot about American culture at the time. They really are kind of opening up to kind of engage with those products. And of course, this is just good marketing. But also, there is a story about empathy and about approachability here. So this is Michael O'Leary, the CEO of Ryanair. He's kind of an airline for price-sensitive customers in Europe. So I guess it's an excellent product for that. But he's allegedly said that, like, we do not invest in customer experience because we are specifically for people who crawl naked through glass for low prices. And when I look at the kind of Prada site, I feel like there's something similar going on. Not the prices, but the kind of leaving it up to me. It's like I'm supposed to engage with them on social. I'm supposed to research, and I'm supposed to follow their influencers and kind of put the whole thing together in my mind, leaving it to me to figure it out. And I'm not that motivated, even though I kind of love the brand. And most products, I'm not that motivated about. But I might care about the myth. I might, like, please inspire me. This is the Nike Alpha Flies. These are kind of, like, if you're into running, these are mythical beasts. If you're part of the tribe, you'll already know the story I'm about to tell you. Because this is Nike pulling out all the stops. They spent years researching this shoe, experimenting, and the kind of goal was to be able to allow one elite runner to break the 2-hour marathon kind of barrier. It's never been done before. And it took years, and at some point, Eliud Kipchoge was able to then complete the first marathon, sub-2-hour marathon. It's remarkable. Then, so these shoes are historic. The impact of these shoes on kind of like top-level running is such that athletes have been known to cancel their sponsorship contracts with other brands in order to run with these because of the performance benefits. These shoes are kind of beyond the hype. They are like the real deal. They are like what you create marketing stories about, but they are real. Did I learn this story from Nike? Of course I did not. Of course, the PR people at Nike planted this story for me to find and everything in my kind of, on my murder wall, cobble it together somehow. But I'm not part of that tribe. I'm a casual runner. I'm receptive to the myth, but I only bothered to do this research because of this talk. Nike was not really helping. Like, if you Google for AlphaFly, this is your search result, and you see like Nike has helpfully bought out the top spot there, sending you to a page about AlphaFly, and if you click that, this is what you get. These are historical, mythical shoes. and right like this, these shoes just looks like kind of overpriced shoes for suckers, I guess, because there is no story here. And I guess I am a sucker for stories like that. But I want a story, and as it turns out, they do provide like a kind of a shoe for like normal people like me, like below average runners who just need some help, not crunching their knees, I guess. And I would never have figured that out. Like, this is not helping me. Like, these are not the shoes I need, right? Like, almost no people in the universe can benefit from these shoes. They are like super hardcore. And the people who really need those shoes probably aren't paying for them. Like, these are shoes for athletes. These are what these shoes are selling, the casual runner shoes. So the only real business value of these shoes is selling these shoes. And then when I'm there, clearly, at their doorstep, with my midlife crisis and my kind of Strava, like disappointing Strava stats, ready for some magic in my life, this. So I don't want to riff on Nike and Prada, or I guess I am, but like this is a general problem, not only for e-commerce. Like, this is all across. Like, these are two sections of Wall Street Journal. This is like a gossip section, and it's like bonds. They look the same. I've been subscribing to kind of American digital newspapers for years. I don't get the paper versions where I live, so I have to kind of decipher like, the structure of the offering by often just looking at like small font changes in the title to realize, oh, this is the weekend edition. OK, I guess that's a feature article. So no wonder news outlets often kind of end up just being a feature of social. Like, they just live off of the references from like Facebook feeds. And people who really care about that are kind of lost in this jungle of just samey templates. And then you have like the streaming services where like, actually this is from a different service than we thought we initially planned. I didn't even realize. Like, I don't know, these all look the same. They all use the same grid. Some of these shows cost kind of the healthcare budget of a small nation state to make and are recent. Some of these are just filler catalog stuff from like an old Universal thing they just inherited. These look all the same. There's no way for me, unless I kind of really follow this. Like, I have to ask my kids, like, what should I watch now? Oh yeah, there's a new show coming. I'm like, I can't figure it out here in this service. So of course, the audiences are still coming to our stuff. They're still engaging because we do PR. We push it on social. We buy some influencer energy. We buy ads. We place it on podcasts. We optimize the heck out of it on search. But unremarkable experiences leads to unimpressed audiences. And even though they might interact with our stuff for a bit, complete a transaction, look for that show they read about on Twitter, they're not connecting. They're not engaging with our stuff. And the next time, we'll have to buy their attention all over again from scratch. And it's a big business problem, right? Because unremarkable experience leads to a kind of platform serfdom. Like, even for Nike and Prada and like high-power brands like that, they are still kind of beholden to Amazon, Apple, Google, and Meta for their kind of access to their audiences, because they have no independent relationship with them online. So when I see weird behavior like that, I like to do some research. And sometimes it's reasonable. There are reasonable motivations behind it. So one of the sites I was kind of wondering about is this is Finn.no. It's kind of Norway's Craigslist. And I'm looking at this and this is very drab. It's very ugly. Everything is misspelled in all caps, and the pictures are just kind of snapshots from people's bathrooms. So I would ask them, why aren't you kind of helping people maybe take better pictures? Maybe just make a more smooth experience for people by having them contribute better content. And they, of course, they are big on user testing, so they had tested that. And actually they said, this makes people feel they are connecting, with a community, a real community. And they feel engaged and they feel like a part of something. So we leave it like this and we actually kind of encourage it. And Finn has been assaulted by the platforms for years, and they have stood their ground. And Finn is the kind of place where when you look for secondhand stuff in Norway, you go Finn.no into your browser, you start there. They have a relationship with their audience because they are remarkable and they know why and how. When I do similar research with e-commerce actors, with media, with product marketing, the story is not so great. Clearly, they understand the value of storytelling. They understand the value of myth and contextualization of their product. And the way I can understand this, they seem like they expect that their customers also expect and desire that. So it's not that. It's not that this is what people want. What we do here is that they struggle to provide what they call an integrated experience. And they often blame their tools. So they say, we have great e-commerce tools, we have great kind of publishing tools, but they don't really connect. So what some companies do is kind of Frankenstein these systems together. And even though these Frankenstein systems might provide an approximation of an integrated experience, so you can have a blog system and some e-commerce solution together, that works for the consumer, I guess. For the teams, it often leads to this hopping between systems and disconnected teams struggling to really understand this kind of connected experience that the consumers are seeing. So they're often seeing a very different picture and struggle to provide that. And then as kind of requirements evolve, the system grows more unwieldy, and this kind of monster system tends to just kind of grind to a halt. Everyone is just waiting for engineers and designers to become available or code to deploy is just stopping. And then at this point, either the monster kills you or you kill it. And what most people do is kill the monster. And that leads to what we've seen up until now in this presentation, because now we realize we'll just have an e-commerce solution, and then we'll have a brand experience somewhere else, and then we'll just do these different campaign sites, and we'll just have them be separate systems. And at least we survive and live to fight another day, but it's not great. So in a sense, we just leave the monster on the table, just ungrafted, and we leave it to the teams and to the audiences to kind of piece it together themselves. And it's kind of rational, but nobody really wants this. We have all this incredible technology, and we are still not able to put together a digital experience on the level of a well-designed broadsheet newspaper or a mail order catalog from the 60s. And honestly, this dynamic it's almost, maybe it's beyond angry, it's almost a little bit scary. So there's the story of the Tower of Babel from the Bible. It's a story about how powerful humans can be when they are able to communicate effectively. I mean, in this story, they go so powerful they can even threaten God. And effective communication is, of course, fundamental to a healthy, functioning society. And being able to elevate an audience and provide a sense of connection and inspire real understanding, it is more than breaking news and selling shoes, even though it's important for that purpose as well. But this atomization of experience into these isolated single-purpose interactions, I think it's corrosive beyond just being bad for business. I suspect it's kind of destructive. And I mean, this is 2022. It must be possible to deliver a remarkable integrated experience that elevate, connect, and inspire audiences. And it shouldn't be hard, it should be routine. It should be second nature to our professions. We need these small tactical systems, but they need to compose so that we can kind of move tactically with smaller systems, but then evolve strategically, integrate them over time into a cohesive whole. We need a way to bring our teams together, collaborate across touchpoints, interaction modes, and to drive an experience without code deploys and design reviews. We need to empower those teams. We need a kind of content fabric that connects these systems so we can have separate systems, separate content sources, teams everywhere, but they all see the same picture. We can orchestrate this whole thing. And we need a new way of thinking. I think this might be one of the biggest hurdles. We need empowered content teams, and that requires more than technical tools. It requires trust, and it requires a real investment in those teams. And then we need design tools and frameworks to evolve. We need them to make it easy and kind of approachable for designers to create experiences that are driven by the content in a real way. So it's not about filling out templates, but it's about presenting the content that is there. So if content is whatever is left with you as the experience itself kind of fades, if you accept this idea, the brand really is the content. And the content, whatever it is your brand. And to the extent that you can put this together, make your content be coordinated, responsive, continuous, and your brand can be relevant, present, and remarkable online. You can feel alive. And this is what structured content is about. It is that common factor that connects the strategies, the technologies, and the kind of connections we need to make, the mentalities that make this possible. And I'm assuming we are preaching to the choir here. You made it to this conference. You probably know a lot of this. At least you have a hunch. But in our experience, you probably struggle to bring your organization or a team into this kind of thinking. And even if you do, this is kind of hard. There are some technical hurdles. There might be some even bigger organizational and cultural hurdles. So to help you and your team really move the needle on this, my friend and colleague, Carrie Hane, has put together this, I guess, survival guide for structured content future. Is that fair to say? Take it away, Carrie.
Thank you, Simen. All right. Well, I think Simen painted a remarkable picture of the state of digital experience today. Maybe not positive, but it's where we are, right? So maybe this has inspired you to want to get to work right away to create some remarkable experiences. I know I'm inspired by all this work we've done to create this conference and to build a community around this. And it's pretty easy to be inspired. It's harder to do the work, as Simen said. And it's even harder to get our organizations to change how they work. So how do we create remarkable integrated experiences over and over again? Not by hiring the best, most creative agencies for every campaign we do, but with what we have and what we know. So to help us work within this structured content system, we've developed 7 guiding principles to help anyone create remarkable integrated experiences repeatedly. So to start us off, content is the whole reason people are coming to your website, using your app, buying your product. Shouldn't it drive the experience? So with structured content, content becomes the material of design itself, rather than something to be poured into pretty containers. And intentionally structured and created content can help us bring together dynamic, usable, and impactful experiences that help us build credibility, trust, and loyalty with our audiences. So by having content drive the experience, we move from having nicely built but rigid containers to having useful, usable, meaningful expressions of content. Now, models are representations of real-world things. Content is a surrogate for something that exists outside of your digital property. A chair exists whether or not it's on IKEA's website. What properties does it have? How is it related to other things like tables and rugs? I hate to break it to you, but people are not waking up every morning ready to engage and interact with your brand. They also don't wake up with a sudden urge to buy Nike running shoes. No, they first have to decide to start running or level up their running game, and they need shoes to support that. How do you fit into their world? That's your content model. What content types do you need to connect with the people who need the information you have? Now, a collaboratively built content model serves two purposes. First, it creates a map of all your content, all that content that you need to connect with your audience and get out information that they need. And that's how we usually think of it. But it's also a tool for aligning people, all the people that need to understand how this content fits together to create integrated, remarkable experiences. It's not just one thing or another, it's about everything. We have to bring them all together. So with models based on real world meaning and not how they're represented on a screen, we move from experiences that must be continually recreated to scalable, sustainable structure that can be reconfigured over and over again. So the meaning and structure of the content needs to be turned into data that can be embedded explicitly regardless of where it's expressed. We cannot imagine every person who will ever come in contact with our content, nor every journey that they'll take to get there, or even how they'll work their way through it once they arrive. And with structured content, we don't have to. The structure may seem like that structure leads to boring and generic experiences, but it's quite the opposite. Structure sets content free. It becomes responsive to the context in which it's taken in. It can be arranged and expressed through rules and brought together in any website, any app, any product, any feed, anywhere someone might encounter our content. And so we remain relevant and become dynamic to the world around us. So with structured content treated as data, we go from content that's purpose-built for a single channel and inflexible to content that's planned as data that can be used anywhere. So now you might be thinking, it's kind of hard to imagine a single place, a single repository for all the types of content we might have, because we're not just talking about e-commerce, we're not just talking about marketing, we're talking about all the content that exists out there in the world, all the information. But maybe we can imagine bringing all those different content systems together into a single pane of glass or a unified console or dashboard that allows content creators to see all of those things at once in one place. No more mapping systems together, hoping they sync up and end up showing up in the right place at the right time the way we want them to. We can be more sure of what we're putting together. So content as data can be stored or accessed through a centralized content repository because it's not about where it's ending up. It's just about the meaning and intent of the content itself. So we can keep content in its purpose-built containers, but allow creators to select what they want to bring together. So instead of sending our audiences on a maze through multiple websites, multiple applications, multiple products to complete a task or get the information they need, we can bring together all the properties, products, and applications in a way that makes sense for our audiences, for all of us. We've all interact with other sites that we don't build, and it can be frustrating. So we can stop shipping our org structure or our software stack. And when we bring our product information management system, our customer relationship management system, our learning management system, our marketing content management system, they can all come together seamlessly when they're all built on a shared model. So by making content centrally available, you move from content for each channel living separately in closed systems to unified content repository in an open system available for anyone to use. In many organizations, teams, people work in what we have come to call silos. The design and developer teams get really good at perfecting handoffs, while the business or product owners just can't wait to see what that's going to be delivered to them. And the poor content people are left to hope that their content fits in whatever is given to them. So it's no wonder that we have so many disconnected experiences. The teams that are creating them are disconnected themselves. So instead of getting better at handoffs, we need to bring everyone together: business, product, design, development, content, all the different roles involved in creating digital experiences. We need to bring them together early to create a shared understanding of the problem and each team's role in solving it. That way, they can go back, work separately at what they do best, and have conversations with other people when they get stuck. When questions arise, they can communicate. Communication is key. So we can get rid of handoffs. We can get rid of deliverables. Sorry, agencies, I know that's your lifeblood. I've been there, done that. We can get rid of meetings that should have been emails or Slack messages and create and build trust, confidence, and collaboration with the people we work with. And connecting the silos in these ways supports aggregated expertise, ensures accountability, and allows for collective ways of working. So the marketing team that needs to regularly publish product comparison pages doesn't have to set up a whole project every single time with their design and development team and wait for all of that stuff to happen. They can all come together once, create an editorial experience and an expression framework so that every time the product marketing team needs to have a new page up, they enter the information they need that they've created about these products and hit publish, and that's it. Increase content velocity, allow the design and developers to work on more complex problems, keep the revenue machine running, and stay relevant to your audience because you're getting them the information when they need it. When teams are unified and empowered, we move from dysfunctionally decentralized teams to functional connections between teams that unlock everyone's superpowers and allow them to do their best work and work in a way that makes sense for them. You may have heard the saying, change is the only constant, or if you're not ahead, you're behind. It really is true in the world of digital experience. We have to use decoupled and composable systems to build interlocking, interchangeable frameworks that adapt to the world around us, to the new technologies, to the new needs of customers. And a unified team can build technology infrastructure to support anything. The technology is there. We just have to learn how to work with it better. This can free us from the monolithic systems that try to be everything to everyone. And then we can, once you see the possibilities of structured content and dynamic publishing based on rules and explicit meaning, you will never be satisfied with going back to that one big system again. Now, don't get me wrong, monoliths were good at one time. They helped get us from hand-coding simple websites to making our modern, complex digital tools we have today. But their time is up. We have new things to build every single day. So decoupled and composable systems allow us to move from old ways of doing old things to new ways of doing new things. Now, it would be understandable if you're a little bit overwhelmed by now, all these ideas, and not really knowing where to start. Maybe, oh, this is all great, but I don't know what to do. I don't know what I can do myself to make this happen. And it's okay. The important thing is to get started. Build something, ship something, and iterate constantly. If you don't get it out, if it doesn't ship, it doesn't count. Not move fast and break things. Don't do that. We tried that, didn't work. But we still have to get things out into the world, but more deliberately. And if we work in the ways we talk about, we'll have less trauma from delivering things too quickly. So think about what each of you can do when you go back to work to take that first step towards creating a more remarkable experience for your organization or your clients. It takes courage to do things differently than we've always done them and from what other people are doing and expecting of you. But that's how the world changes. The teams that have successfully changed how their organizations worked started small, shared their success, built demand, and transformed organizations. So when you start thinking about how to start, rather than how to change all the things at once, you move from being too overwhelmed to make any changes to finding a way to take that first step and bring others with you. So we have another day and a half of this conference, so you probably you have at least 2 days before you have to go back to work. Maybe more for some of you, especially us in the US, we have a long weekend coming up. Take that time and think about what future you will build when you get there. Every one of our situations is unique. You do have to start where you are. So I can't tell you the answer for how to get started. But look around, see what small thing you can do to make a start with how you work or how you interact with a colleague. Maybe take Nike's advice and just do it. Or follow Grace Hopper's motto of asking forgiveness instead of permission. You can find allies and build champions. There are others who are willing to try new things. Find them, do some experiments, share what you learn, share your successes, and build a movement within your organization. The risks of not changing are bigger than the risks of continuing to do the things we've always done the way we've always done them. Someone else will try something new, and you're going to be out of business. Don't think it can't happen to you or your industry or your product. Blockbuster and Kodak thought that, and you don't see them around these days. I also have some news. Computers are taking over, so you might want to figure out how to make them your friend. Now, none of these ideas that Simen or I talked about are revolutionary. People have been talking about them for 10, 15, 20 years or more. So why haven't they stuck? because it takes more than a few individuals to make it work. We have to change that now. Together, we can do more. We have the technology to do it. We need collective action. We need a movement. And we at Sanity are joining that movement. Will you join us? Thank you.